So then, we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant, from the Aramaic English translation of the word. The Aramaic is the translation then from the original documents of the Hebrews of old, the prophets of Israel, giving us understanding of the time of the end, as we understand as per then the Renewed Covenant, the time after the Messiah, the second services of the Holy Tabernacles. This is the time that we are at. However, there are layers related with this present age in heaven. From Hebraic viewpoint, we understand that there is a period of time given to the Gentiles. And also we understand there is a divine relation with heaven and the earth. So then we understand the first 1,000 years his people then became in charge of the real heaven in this earth, related with teaching the people what heaven is like of the kingdom to come. The other 1,000 started when then the Muslims destroyed the holy city and the tomb from where the Messiah came from. He came from the dead after he spent 72 hours in Sheol. Then he returned. Started then the time of the seat. So then another 1,000, then when you understand Nahash then, or Satan then became in charge of the heaven's understanding in the earth. Time of the seat. There is a couple thousand on top of it related then with secular. So the divine part of it from the first 1,000 does not mix with the other 1,000, neither the 2,000 on top. You have to understand how to read the layers of understanding of prophetic time, divinity, and earth. If you don't understand the Torah, if you're never taught in the Torah and understanding of the layers coming from it, you won't understand then the revelation. You have to have the basis. The Messiah came a long time ago and he was a student of the Torah. Because he spoke of it. The whole purpose he came was then to explain the Torah. That's why he came. So then his people would understand what it would be like in the future until the end of this age. But there are layers of understanding. We have to understand from the viewpoint of heaven and then in the earth. So then we find then the first 1,000 and then the other 1,000 and then the 2,000 on top of it, another layer. Then it is related with the time of the end, the rulership of the secular Gentiles. When Yahweh speaks, it has only an answer and an answer only. There are no multiple answers. It's his nature, his character. He gives indicators, he gives them directives. He has only an opinion and an opinion only. So then the first 1,000 has ended, the other 1,000 has ended in 2009 or 6009 per the Creator's calendar. And then there is the 2,000 on top of it, only holding back because of the last time's trade. Put your hands to work. So heaven's understanding and then earthly understanding of trade versus divine, those are separated. Throughout the centuries, they had those glued together. Because there was a time of deceit. But those are separated. Because we have time and prophecy relating with each other. And as the transitional time comes, those layers, they must separate. So the times of deceit, those are over with. We understand churches are a fraud. We are speaking of the holy services of the second services of the tabernacles. That's what is returning. And then what is then regarding the third layer on top? It is then the time of the rulership of the Gentiles. It's the end of time. Because the section related with the heaven is returning to the truth. The deceit is over with and the truth is returning. Yahweh's holy cities giving directives to the nations as per their requests. That's why nations of old, they would visit the Jerusalem to receive inquiries from Yahweh. That's what is returning. The cities, what the Messiah said, go around the world and form holy cities, without interfering with their own trade. But the trade goes on. And China is the leader of this final day's trade. So then, in terms of countries' factions, rebels, militia, what is the link then from this time of restoration where there are so many of these people fighting around? As we understand, wars are prohibited. It's time of restoration. Then we must understand what Prophet Daniel explained. At the end they would go to and fro and knowledge would increase. We have to understand the point of the knowledge. So what would be then with these countries going on and fighting around? When China comes in and they make a deal with them, with the Chinese people, and they deliver their cargo escorted, then they usher in peace in the region, restoration. And the most important factor is going to come yet, and a lot of it is in place, is the trades practices via online from China, where each country then as a person has a virtual banking system linked up with this trade. So there is no more reason for war. That's why it's a time of restoration. So from houses far away, as long as they have a link with this system coming from China, they can invest, they can transfer their money, and they can do trade. They don't have to win a leadership of a country to establish trade anymore. But then the old countries, they are fighting as per the time of the deceit. When there is deceit, then groups, they have to fight. In truth, there is no reason for it. A mere simple computer can put you online so you can do trade around the world. The government is a simple factor of managing the taxes. But then obviously China must come out and do what they must do. They have to establish this line of trade around the world. So then when you read Revelation at the end, and then the nations and kingdoms would do trade with her. That's the whole purpose. Try to understand the end of times technology and what it's for. Tiny places in many countries that were never exposed to a computer, they're going to start linking up themselves. And a simple virtual bank would put them in charge of trade. So it's no longer a requirement of having a government dictating to them. As long as they understand the rules of taxes, so then the nation can develop. But then when you are doing trade, what do you find? You have to find the least expensive products. Where do you find? In China. So the word is simply linking up with this new system. Read the word. The situation of a country trying to be above the other, that's past. That's during the time of the deceit. That's why the Chinese has developed throughout their culture the policy of trade. They trade cheap, and the more raw materials they get, they lower even more the price. So then from the viewpoint of the Messiah, when he was explaining of the time of the end, he was then making a group of prophets speaking of the same subject. You have then the tradesperson, the statesperson, Daniel, explaining to you the time of the end, the politics of the end. Then you have Yeshiach explaining then heaven's relation with this new system. But then if you don't study the Torah, you reject the Torah, you don't understand the Torah. You don't understand multi-layers of the Torah. How are you going to understand Revelation? That's why Shaliach Shaul said the shadow prophetic events based from the Torah, not the substance of themselves, but the shadow understanding of them. Because we are speaking with the Gentile world. We are not speaking of the holy city at the moment. We are speaking of significances related with the end of time, because the renewed covenant is for the salvation of the Gentiles.